Let's go again. Welcome, my name is Paul Hamblin. I'm editor of Logistics Business. You're watching the latest in our series of expert panels as part of the Logistics Business virtual show. The theme of this panel is unleashing the power of data, which of course is a massive subject within the industry at this time. And I'm joined by experts from across the industry to discuss and consider the key points to help you in your decision making and indeed in your buying decisions in the months and years ahead. It's not about formal presentations, it's not about sales pitches or death by PowerPoint. This is about getting some expert insight, and of course as part of that your questions do matter, so please do use the chat facility on the screen to engage with our panelists according to your own interests. So thank you for that, and without further ado we will steam in, and I'll start by asking each of our panelists just very briefly to introduce themselves, starting with you, Rob.
I get the first. Okay. Hello, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Robert Jordan. I'm the CEO at the Information Factory, and our data-driven products and solutions are focused on putting data to work, refining raw, unconnected information and turning it into actionable insights. We were founded in 2004, and we're focused on the logistics sector. And today we're a team of 70 plus architects, developers, program managers based in headquarters in Luxembourg, but with most of our team based in and around Czech Republic or the UK. Thank you, Rob. And now Ulrich.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ulrich Top. I'm a Danish national, worked in the transportation industry. I think I was born into it. I am the founder of World Options in Belgium and Netherlands, and we are a reseller of transportation services to small to medium-sized enterprises. So you can imagine the different layers we have got. Is information is key. When I started in shipping many years ago, you know, it was stencils and rolling and telexes and so on and so forth. But as far as I'm concerned, our industry could not work without data and managing data. So it's a really key topic for me.
Okay, thank you for that, Ulrich. And Graham.
Thank you, Paul. Hello, so my name is Graham Aitken. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Customer Pricing with DHL Express. I'm based in London currently, but over the past 27 years, I've lived in various different parts of the world, work in various finance, pricing, commercial roles, and I've always been either on the user side of data or the actual construction and the building of systems. So I've been on both sides of the fence.
Okay, fantastic. So to come on to our theme then, our theme is unleashing the power of data. And I think a good place to start is to actually define what that means, because data can mean different things to different people, as we know. So perhaps Rob, can you give us a definition of what we're talking about here? And maybe we can ask Ulrich and Graham to expand on it if they feel there's anything missing, which I'm sure there wouldn't be. But let's talk about that for a bit. Give us a definition.
Good question. Okay. Well, data is basically, for me, as the more I work with it, more and more a physical element. It's something that is produced that's a descriptive of the underlying system that it's coming from, and it's a very tangible thing for us because we work hands-on with it all of the time. So your data very much is the descriptor. It's the base unit from which you're going to build up a picture, and from that picture you're going to do something. So it's the building block of information is, I think, probably the best description that I could give you for data.
But what does it mean for customers if you can begin to understand data? We'll get some use cases, but just what are the sort of benefits that can come to a business and an organization that is on top of getting its data?
Yeah, okay. The data journey and the data maturity curve is something that is very important for people to be able to understand where they start from. This idea of hindsight, insight, foresight, which is kind of like the building blocks again of where you're going to go with your data. That's the journey that people go through, and then of course outside of that you've got this huge ability to be able to then create entire industries. And I think Ulrich's a very good example where World Options is basically a data-driven company. They've taken advantage of the opportunities to be able to use data to be able to create an industry that just couldn't have existed without data in its modern digital form. So I think data's absolutely fundamental. It always has been, and to businesses, the wonderful stories and journey of data through data visualization and the more use of data through time is something that illustrates just how important it is. And from the very early stuff of the Florence Nightingales or the views of Napoleon marching across Europe, which is rather topical. Those type of visualizations were the early days of beginning to be able to really see data being put to work in the field. Nowadays, as I say, you're into an entirely different paradigm, and AI and machine learning is opening up in entirely new areas for using information, or using data, really.
Sure. Thank you for that, Rob. I mean, Ulrich and Graham, before we start talking about how your specific businesses have used data, have you got anything you'd like to add to that? Anything that can help explain what data is?
Yes, I think the metaphor of using that as shipments or parcel is kind of the babies or the passengers that is having the journey through a raft of networks and so on and so forth. And there's so much different data in terms of the journey, the tracking, the pricing around it and so on and so forth, and basically consolidate that and have a shipment-driven view, a customer-driven view, a carrier-driven view is the key to understand in different elements and in different summaries where that the data that's associated with that particular shipment.
Sure. And Graham, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think maybe in terms of data, one of the biggest things that's changed is probably the amount of data that we can get. So whereas in the past, everything was very fragmented, there wasn't much of it. So from a DHL perspective, we now have like so much data on every single shipment, on every single customer, on every facility. So really it's the amount of data, it's the quality of data, the consistency. And once you've got that in place, you can then start to use it and monetize it.
Sure. Okay, great. Well, look, let's get into some specific nitty gritty, some meat. And maybe if we come to you, Ulrich, let's talk about how you've used in World Options, what you've done to develop your data journey, what challenges you were looking to address, and how you've dealt with them.
So kind of our first starting point was, of course, to that even though we are very much a face-to-face organization that want to sell to the medium-sized enterprises, that is in our mind a little bit ignored by the big carriers that are focusing on the bigger customers, then our interaction and our ability to have a lean and mean organization is all driven by that we have a shipping portal and we are capturing the data, we are storing the data that is reused on an ongoing basis. But I think the major shift we recently have done is that Robert and his team have taken us into the business intelligence area, which really have helped us in an enormous way of managing the different consistencies. Because as Graham said, there are so much data. So, you're ending up spending, 90% of your time correlating data and then 5% of being intelligent about it. But now with a data warehouse, with consolidation of data, you can spend 95% of your time being smart and intelligent about it, because the data is just consolidated and are ready to be used, if you like. And we have conditions that, like, when we negotiate with carriers, we know, like with the DHL of this world, they have got a lot of data, So, you know, we need also to be able to be smart and ready to make the right negotiation. We need to share with our customers in terms of where they are shipping to. And I can give you a simple example of, you know, we are in this lovely world of, you know, DHL is serving as a 228 countries, Graham, but we can use data to basically look at which countries we are shipping to. And why is that important? It's important because you know, our customer support people needs to be professionals and know and understand certain markets, if you like. And when it's SMEs, we probably all know they're shipping to neighboring markets. So we can basically rank down on, you know, out of the 228 countries, if we know very well about 10, 15 countries and can really serve our customers there, then we are good to go, so to speak. But we can also then managing trends of whether anything is coming up that is more trending, and then we can train our people accordingly.
Right. And of course, I think it's fair to say, isn't it, that all business decisions ultimately come down to, is it going to make our business more efficient, faster, cheaper? That's normally what the CFO wants to know. What has that meant for World Options in terms of how have you improved in those key metrics with the power that data's given you?
The power of the data is, of course, that we can look at margins on any sort of level, if you like, by carrier, by customer, by shipments, etc., etc. And we can tune up the margins where we then identify through other parts of the data that we are spending a disproportionate amount of time on this carrier or this customer, if you like. So, you know, we will never have been able to do that in the past, never.
So you feel there's been a streamlining and almost getting rid of the flabbiness from your process, if I can use that word, from processes.
Absolutely. Spot on.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Graham, DHL, of course, huge company that everybody knows. Can you take us through the journey that you've been on with this, please?
Yeah, probably the biggest data project that I've worked on that's evolved over time is costing and profitability information. So as we started this, I was actually thinking that the first time we ever built a cost model in DHL, it was quite literally people like me in a warehouse somewhere with a clipboard, basically doing a time and motion study, because there really was no data. It was literally go and collect it. And to be honest, if you collect it on a clipboard, it's not particularly accurate. You're going to get people's opinions. So the journey we've been on for the past 15 or so years is to completely automate all of our cost and profitability. So as I said, we've got a lot more data than we used to. It's a lot more consistent. So now pretty much everything is automated. So we can get cost, profitability of every single shipment that flows through the DHL network everywhere in the world. It's not quite at the push of a button, but it is all 200 plus countries are done roughly at the same time. So it's the same method, it's the same system, and it's all centralized. So, and it's all built purely on data. So if we want to know the profitability of a customer in Japan, it's exactly the same method if we look at a customer in Brazil or the UK or wherever it might be. And it's also much more robust than it used to be. So in the past, if we say the profitability of a country or a product is plus 15% or minus 15%, you end up with a huge debate about why that number is right or wrong, because we don't have the data. You didn't understand this or that. Nowadays, it's just data. It's built on exactly what courier route picked this shipment up, which flight number was it on, when did we deliver it, where did we deliver it. So all of the data is there that we can get this data, we can get the results very, very accurate. And as I said at the beginning, that's when we can actually start to take action. So we can start to look at unprofitable trade lanes or customers or products, and then we can start to improve things. So we don't spend weeks and months working on data and analyzing it. We can get straight to actually taking much, much quicker actions.
Right. You've mentioned a couple of times, you've said about the amount of data that is now available to you that wasn't before. And you did mention a couple of examples there as you were talking, such as which flight it was on, when it arrived and where. Can you just give us off the top of your head a list of the type of, you know, the bits of information that are available to you now at the touch of a button that weren't, say, before you began this process?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're a DHL customer and you track a shipment, so if you type in your airwaybill number, the DHL website, you'll see maybe 15, 20 checkpoints. So it was picked up in London, it went through our hub in Leipzig, it was cleared in Cincinnati, and it was delivered in Miami. So you get I don't know, 20 checkpoints or something. In the background, of course, we've got hundreds of checkpoints for every shipment. So we know the route number, we know the courier's ID, we know the clearance type of the shipment, we know the exact routing, we know as I said, we know flight numbers, we know when it was delivered, we know if there's a delay, we know why the shipment was delayed. So we have all that in the background, and we can then use automation to actually allocate cost to every single one of those steps. The second thing in the background is then that we can link it to our revenue information, so we can work out the cost. But to get the profitability, we of course need all the revenue information, which again is now in a single source of the truth. So in the past, we had several different billing systems and different data warehouses in different parts of the world. That's now one single system, one globally aligned, standardized system. So everything is literally in one place, and it's very, very easy to link it together. So we use thousands and thousands of data points to create that cost and profitability information.
Okay, I want to get on to, if I may, in a minute, you know, how much of a challenge it's been to actually get to this position. So we'll come on to that. But before we do that, I'd like to just come back to Rob. Rob, as someone who's at the heart of, you know, the genius that's providing this sort of capability to companies, is there anything you'd want to add to what Graham and Ulrich have said in terms of use cases and ways in which data can be monetized and utilized?
Yeah, I'm looking at the just looking at the stories of the two guys. My mind as you're talking it through, and I think that in Ulrich's case at World Options, we were brought in and requested to be able to build the BI application. They had a very successful business that had expanded well. They moved into 6 countries at the time that we were called in. They didn't have a single central reporting environment. That we've added in. There is immediate monetary benefits that they've taken from that by going through. You were talking about a leaner organization, but in terms of just making sure that everything was billed. I mean, I know that there was over 100,000 that was able to be picked up and used, and so there's immediate benefits coming from those type of actions. That journey then leads, interestingly, through to the question of, okay, they had moved to the cloud as an enterprise, but they were struggling somewhat with getting the best efficiencies out of the cloud. So a very API driven company, and so it's a data at the heart of what they're doing with these rating service calls that are going out to multiple different carriers. And so we've been involved in making sure that those are efficient, faster, smoother, and more effective. So you've got this kind of like, okay, we've got a system, we've got a successful business. We've then added on to that the need to be able to go faster or use the information to be able to improve our processes and then go faster on top of that. And then the opportunity that's sitting out there that Ulrich's alluded to is this potential to be able to look at dynamic margin management. So you can begin to be able to say, look, okay, where is the appropriate margin? How do we bring that through? Data driven. So that's one opportunity and one data journey that's going on for a very successful business. On the other side of things, thinking back to Graham and the Insight project, and you were talking about volumes, and just to give you an idea of the type of volume that we're talking about earlier, and these guys fully costed, P&L reconciled, piece level information available, 200 countries, working day, 10 to 12 past the end of the month, at really, really granular level of detail. They're talking about something like 5 terabytes worth of information to be able to do that type of thing. So it is a massive amount of information on a regular basis coming into the system. That's a straight engineering question at this level. These guys have got to the point where it is you're beyond you're well beyond a spreadsheet and a clipboard. They're into needing significant, hardware and architecture, and that's the beauty of working with DHL, is that they have the brains, they have the architecture, they have the power to be able to really put in these systems that can deliver. So as a data journey, it's a pleasure to work with them, and they stretch you, because 5 terabytes on a regular basis, that takes some handling.
But it's fair to say, is it not, that these opportunities are also open to SMEs, not just huge companies like DHL, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And here you're into, what's the business model? I think a lot of people need just basic needs to be able to get some reporting together. As I say, this idea of improving the business by looking at the data, to be able to improve the way that your business works. I mean, you have the information, it's how do you get to it. A lot of people spend an awful lot of time just fiddling with the spreadsheet and frustrated, dealing with 1 or 2 systems that they want to be able to connect together. That at that level and is something that needs supporting it. We have a product that's Report Pro that does that basically it's a way of taking a single systems data and allowing you to be able to easily and quickly and effectively get through to the reports. Mm-hmm. Take the time off for yourself. Then you get up the stream, and up the stream, as I say, it gets increasingly complicated, but it gets increasingly more productive in terms of the returns that you can get from it. So, a general BI system, as we put in for World Options, will return customized digitalization projects and data-driven solutions that DHL is driving. Are as I say, they're big, and they will return. They do return.
Right. Let me. There's clearly great benefits. There's great results, but it also, to the uninitiated, it can sound intimidating. It can sound challenging. Let me ask Ulrich and Graham, what were the challenges you had to overcome to get these processes working optimally in your businesses? Can I come to you first, Ulrich? How hard did you find it as a business to do this transformation?
I think that and all success to Rob and his team. We actually had all the data. It was just a question about getting the data in the right place, and work and clean up some of the data, of course. But I think it was a quite reasonable, smooth transition. It was more about getting everyone on board. So it was more an internal orchestration that everyone was on board in understanding why to do this. But then it was a very, very smooth journey, I would have to say. And I agree with you that it applies for all type of sizes of companies, and now it also do apply for SMEs. I would in comparison with DHL, I would take ourselves as a little bit of as an SME in that context. But I don't think you are outgrowing a spreadsheet type approach fairly quickly. And the more you really then from the outset is investing in getting yourself organized for the future, the better. But I think it's a pretty, and particularly in the beginning where it's small, it is probably even easier than to streamline and getting in the right way, if you like. And our logistic industry is, I think in general, is quite rich about data, but also most carriers and most companies are able to provide data, and then you can easily reuse those data instead of rekeying or putting into spreadsheets and whatever have you.
Graham, can I ask you that question about the challenges of implementation for DHL?
Yeah, I think, and Rob probably remembers this quite well, is that one of the things we did in DHL before we dived into all the bells and whistles of business analytics and all the modern systems that you can plug and play on your laptop, the first thing we did was we spent quite a long time and quite a lot of money getting just all of the data in the background aligned and consistent. So we invested in our operational databases, we invested in our billing systems, we invested in all of the background stuff before we moved on to the actual front end and the analytics part, because if you don't have the data right in the background, you're going to find it very, very hard to make proper business decisions at the front end. So if you're mix and matching different databases from different places, it's very, very hard to get consistency and accuracy. So that was the first thing we did, which was, it was an investment. There was a lot of grumbling because it took many years, but it was absolutely the right thing to do first. And I'd say probably when it comes to investing in these systems, you probably need to demonstrate some quick wins. So when we did our first version of costing and profitability, the first thing we did was we sunset some old systems. So if you give me X amount of dollars to invest in this new system, I can save you quite a lot by switching off the old ones. And we actually did it. We did it as quick as possible. We saved that money, we took it out, but that only lasts for so long. So nowadays, if we go and ask for investment for IT systems, so at the moment we're working with Rob's company on a new version of our costing system, which is pretty much finished. But when we go and ask for that money, now all we can say is, I need a very, very large amount of money, and all I can give you is data. So there's nothing else that we can switch off anymore. Do you see value in investing in the data that will come from this system? And fortunately, the answer is yes. And then we can prove it with the business benefits afterwards.
Great. Graham, you know, as you talk there, this might be a stupid question, and by all means say so if it is, but are there dangers for a company in having this level of data available sort of all the time at the touch of a fingertip?
That's an interesting question, because if you go to any data conference in the world, all you hear about is data democracy. So get all your data, throw it into the company, and magical things will happen. In my particular part of the company, where we have cost, profitability, that sort of information, so we know the profitability of every customer, every shipment, every country, and so on, we actually don't share it very widely at all. So it's kept very, very tightly within some pricing people, some finance people, but it's a very, very small group of people that actually see that, because if we put all of that information out into the company, we could get some very, very bad decisions. So my customer has a profitability of minus 10%. We have to get rid of it, or we have to do a 20% price increase, where you need to understand all the nuances of the data underneath before you take that decision. So it's actually quite unusual that we're not very democratic with the data at all, unless people specifically need to see it.
Sure. And I'd love to get Ulrich and Rob's views on that question about, you know, can too much data be a bad thing or a danger? Ulrich, can we start with you on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I completely agree and understand what Graham is saying. And I think, you know, there's a risk that you're turning every employee into be a data analyst, if you like, instead of doing their core work in going out and selling. You know, there are easy mistakes to happen. So we have a reasonable restrictive way on using the data, but we are trying to share as much as we can with the intelligence that we now have in terms of you know, customer profitability, carrier usage, etc., etc. But I concur that this should not be full democracy.
Thank you for that. Rob, anything to add to that?
Yeah, masses on this one. Absolutely.
Feel free.
Yeah, and all day on this one. I think probably first up is that we've seen changes in the regulatory landscape. I mean, the introduction of GDPR has come through. That's been one, and that has this sheer volume of information means that you have to be, in some ways, careful about what you're doing with it, and you have to be, well, not some ways, you are legally obliged to be very careful about what you do with it. Then you've got the so that's that sensitivity at the data level about what you hold, how you hold it, what's available to people out there, and there's a lot of work that goes on at the moment with the companies that we provide or service, who are making sure that that is in place. So GDPR is taken and is seriously seen, and we are making sure that, say, that fields of names and things like that are blanked out before they're provided to people and that type of thing. So all of that is ongoing. So that's this change in the regulatory landscape, and it's really, it's there, and that's come through. So that's one side of things. As the volume of data goes up, security then becomes another one. That again is something that's come to the forefront in the last. It's always been there, but it's really arrived home in the last 5 years, that people want to be able to make sure that their data is secured, that you have got significant layers of security over above anything that is sensitive, to be able to make sure that it's held and that it's held properly. So that's the other side of things, dealing with this sheer volume of the data, and then what you do with it. And just to echo back what the guys have been saying, I mean, the customers very clearly saying to us, we want salespeople selling. You can flood a salesperson with a view of 1,000 different dimensions of what their customer is doing, but what should they do about it? We've seen some very interesting decisions where, for example, at the top end at the moment, that's the top end of the digital or the data tree, the analytical area, people are getting into difficulties with what to do with some of the outputs of what they are capable of producing. So you get a customer churn metric, and it comes up with propensity to churn at this point, and what do you do with a propensity to churn? What's the action that a salesperson should take with that? And so there's some genuine debate about just exactly how much do you give that to a customer, to a salesperson. 0.7 is their propensity to churn. So what action should the salesperson take? That's needing people to be able to take that decision about, okay, how do you translate information into actions and actionable information, and that's a big debate at the moment. So yeah, volume of data it cuts both ways. You have to be careful. Yeah,
sure. But I think you've all made a great case for unleashing the power of data. So for anyone watching this who wants to embark on a journey to get these sort of benefits, what's the panel's advice on how they should approach it? I mean, Graham spoke some detail about what you did up front, and that there was some pain involved, but that it was worth doing that first in order to get everything in the right order. Let's just sort of get an empirical view. What should you do and not do to get this right? In fact, shall I start with you on that one, Graham?
Okay, yeah. So I was actually thinking before this about things we'd done right and wrong. And I used to, when I lived in Germany, I had a huge poster in my office which said detail is not the same as accuracy. So when you start on one of these projects, you can get absolutely sucked into the detail. So we're going to build the perfect system. It's not going to be 5 terabytes, it's going to be 15, because we've got so much complicated data algorithms. It has to be the perfect system. If you take that path, you might never finish. So yeah, detail is great, but just putting in more detail doesn't necessarily make it more accurate. And one other thing I would maybe mention is that right from the beginning and still today, we've always had board sponsorship of whatever we're working on. So cost models, any project, any yield project, it's always had someone on the board who supports it, who sponsors it. Then you can, you've got the support from the top of the company to actually get the money to do it. And then you've got the support to maybe take some difficult decisions afterwards. So if we say one of our biggest customers is actually really unprofitable, we have to make a decision here. This will end up at the board. They need to trust your data and they need to trust your recommendation. So it's really about the balance between too much detail and getting the accuracy correct, I would say.
Thank you for that. And Ulrich, what would you say on that area?
No, I think Graham is spot on. It's about having a reasonable accuracy of your data and clean your data. But I think the key one was the last one Graham came with, and that is the top-down approach. If the top is not bought into that this is the new way of doing business, you will go nowhere. So they need to be on board. They need to be some of the core users, so to speak, or be associated with some core usage, and you need to really understand, their expectation. What is it that they want to get out of the mystery of the pile of all that data? in a very comprehensive and actionable way. What is it they want to see?
Sure. Is there anything you would have done differently, Ulrich, looking back now, knowing what you know now?
I would say that we will probably have done it earlier. We have the advantage of having newer systems, so we didn't have the legacy issue of cleaning up data than like Graham had. So I think we should just have done it earlier. That's my key learning.
Okay, Graham, did you have anything there where you'd say that in hindsight we could have done this?
One thing we've learned, and again, it's something I think we continue working with the Information Factory, is the sort of agile approach. So again, it's not a 2-year project before you see any results. It's that, okay, Rob can add the technical terms, but I think it's the sprint is the word. So you do small leaps forward and you get some results. So you do something, you prove a result, you move on to the next step. And it's all very agile. And whoever's building this system for you needs to understand your business. So you don't want external consultants coming in with a high level approach and will sell you this amazing system. You actually need people helping you with the development who understand your business. That's critical.
Yeah, that's great advice. And coming to you, Rob, you've got experience over many years globally as a provider of these services. So our audience would love to hear your advice. What's the best way to approach it from the beginning? Tell us the sort of no mistakes way to success in this. Yeah.
Everything that guys have said makes a lot of sense. The gentleman said, the modern program management and delivery methodologies of Agile help you to be able to get these incremental steps so that you can get returns that people are able to see quickly and to be able to appreciate, and then to be able to keep that momentum. So everything that's good management is very, very useful in making sure that you can keep going. And if you've got those little steps, it is, I think you have to go into this understanding that everybody is at a different level of maturity, but everybody can be able to get something out from taking the next steps, doing something. There is always something more that you can do in the data world. Nobody is fully using it perfectly. And even those people with, a fully digital business case will still be working hard on making sure that the data consistency, the speed, the coherence of it needs to be brought up. But I think the guys have got for me, the undeniable main number one factor is that you need a good, strong business case. For us, we see success where we have people who are passionate about what they want and have got a really good understanding of their business industry. They know what they want and that they know the business. And then translating that for us is, let's say, then more an engineering task. And you're in there about producing something that fits what they need. We're not the experts in the business. We are the experts at the data. So you need that those business people who have got the passion, who know what they want, know what they're able to achieve. And for them to be successful, they have to have that board level sponsorship, because data will uncover some very uncomfortable truths as you begin to be able to look at it. And every new set of eyes will uncover something. And that needs you then to be able to take that back in, to be able to, whatever it is comes up, there's going to be an impact and somebody's going to have to do something, which is where that board level sponsorship comes in. And it's to be successful overall, that's key.
What would you say, Rob, to a company or organization that is worried about disruption to existing processes as they undergo this transformation?
I think you have to embrace it. It's only ever positive. Some of it can, yes, quite openly be a pain in the ass when somebody comes into you and tells that field is not being filled in correctly, and because of that we're unable to be able to do something. You need to be able to do your job more accurately on that. Then that can be a real pain in the ass, but the returns from that are always massively outweigh any type of disruption that's going on for it, that comes from it. But yes, you have to expect that there is going to be conflict with this, which, as I say, I think is why that you need the person with the clear focused business case and the passion to be able to drive it through.
Ulrich, did you experience, or are you experiencing still disruption as a result of this, that has outweighed this benefit of it? No,
not at all. Not at all. Maybe because we are having all our providers producing the data that is required. There are always some anomalies, and that's where you need to understand the results of your queries, but also what's behind it, if you like. We luckily is a small organization, so very little disruption, to be honest, in terms of it's only good stuff has come out of it, in my mind. And I would sincerely recommend everyone to do something about how they can view their data and use the power of the data to make the right business decision for them.
Thank you for that. Graham, anything on disruption?
Yeah, I think I agree with Ulrich as well. I mean, I think in DHL we're a bit past the stage where disruption is seen as something bad. It's seen as something positive. So yes, we keep coming out with new systems. I mean, I'm just being migrated to Office 365, which is a complete pain, but it's progress, it's positive disruption, and it's a micro example. But in terms of large data projects, it really depends on how you sell it. So we're making this change. This is the new analytics. From my side, this is our new costing profitability system, and this is how it will help you. So yes, as Ulrich said, you can still find issues in your data which you have to fix, but the big picture, it's all about progress.
Fantastic. Well, look, we're pretty much at the end of our time, so I'm grateful to you for your insight, but I've got to get one sort of final answer, certainly from Ulrich and Graham. What's on your wish list? What do you want to have next that data can provide for you? Starting with you, Graham. Getting you on the spot.
Oh, what would I like?
Anything with it.
Actually, it's not about big things now. I think it's more about incremental change. So we've got a lot of our base systems. The data gets better. So at the moment, as I mentioned, we're working with Information Factory on a new costing system, because the old one got a little bit out of date, because a lot of the data has now caught up, it's improved, or it's past what we had. So the data just keeps getting richer. And probably the fun part is actually exploiting that data to make decisions that improve your business. So my current job is strategic customer pricing. So now I'm almost exclusively a customer of data, not a builder of it. So the fun part for me is actually about just using that data more and more to improve the business.
Fantastic. You thought on the fly very well there. Well done, Graham. Ulrich?
I would say that by nature of this being very much agile development and constant improvement, there is not a big thing, because you have the ability every time you come up with something that's missing, just to refine it, next time around, if you like. So that I think this is the beauty on when you have done the big leap of getting there in the first place. Then it is constant improvement, and there's no big things. Of course, big things would happen if certainly a new way of doing things would come, but that would be for everyone. But at the moment, there's no big things, but it is just constant improvement of your data when you are coming across something that you maybe want to look at it in a slightly different way.
Thank you, Ulrich. So last word for you, Rob. Give us some insight into what the Information Factory has got coming down the track for us in this fast improving, growing area.
We're driven by our customers, we always are, and we're lucky to be able to have customers who drag us forwards, sometimes at an alarming speed. So the latest for us at this point is looking at complex events in streaming data. It's moving in that direction. So it's higher volumes, it's more complexity, it's enabling them to be able to, whether it's fraud detection or whether it's network optimization, or whether it's providing data through to the salespeople or the finance people at a faster rate, in a more easily accessible manner. So I think we are being dragged up the the big data path by our customers without a question, so that the volume, the veracity, and is coming through. So for us, it's looking forward to being able to. What we get out of bed in the morning for is to be able to deliver the interesting business cases for our customers who always stretch us, and that's the pleasure of the job.
Well, it's been fascinating to hear about today, and exciting too. So I'm grateful to Ulrich and Graham and Rob for your outstanding insight. Just to say to our audience, please do use the chat facility to ask any questions of our panel. But beyond that, we look forward to meeting up in the flesh soon. And thanks for your time today, guys.
Thank you very much.
Go on. Bye.
Thank you, Paul.